Good evening, everybody. This is ANC 5D Zoning and Development Committee, the January 2021 meeting. It is January 21st. Welcome, everybody. We have a good attendance tonight, and we've got, right now, we've got one neighbor who has attended. I don't think there's a lot of projects needing zoning approval, new projects that need to come before the committee. So I think this might be a relatively short meeting this month. But I actually just want to open the floor to our neighbor who has attended to see if she hear about a project of her own, or just attending just to learn more about what's going on in the neighborhood. Hi, Kara.
Hi, sorry, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, wonderful. No, so I'm relatively new-ish to the neighborhood. I moved here a couple months ago, and I was just curious what sort of projects were going on. And I've never attended any sort of local government meeting in my life, so I wanted to get kind of more involved. So I just kind of decided to dive right in.
Great. So the neighbor, I'm guessing, did you see my post on Nextdoor? Is that where you saw the ad for this?
Yes.
Oh, great. Yeah, I should probably post in more places than that, but that's where I always post. So this meeting, this is below the level of city council. The city has advisory neighborhood commissioners, and there are elected members, and we've got well, we can do a quick intros, but we have got the ANC commissioner, Zach Hoffman from 5D06 is here tonight. Former ANC commissioner Keisha Shropshire was here. Oh, I think she dropped off. I think I need to, let me allow someone. We've got another neighbor has, just going to promote them to a panelist so they can participate as well. And so the ANC, they're like the first line of kind of government that most neighbors often get involved with. And the ANCs, they've got a lot on their plate. So they, about 2 years ago, they formed kind of a committee to help them and to offload some tasks. So the zoning development committee, where on the ANC's website, if you go to www.anc5d.org, there's a committees tab. And if you go in there, you can look at a document. It's kind of our, I'm not sure how you call it, but it was kind of the charter document we wrote describing what we do. And basically what we do is we support and advise the ANC on zoning and development matters that affect neighborhoods of Carver, Langston, Gallaudet, Ivy City, Trinidad, and Union Market. I'd say 95% of our time is reviewing applications for when a developer or a neighbor wants to do something that's not quite matter of right. Like most of our neighborhoods, we have RF1 zoned. The lots that our houses are on are RF1 zoned. So as a matter of right, if you want to do a big renovation to your house, you can make a 2-unit as a matter of right. You could do a 10-foot addition as a matter of right. There's a lot of different zoning regulations. Those are kind of two that pop up a lot. And frequently a developer might want to make a building slightly larger. They want to do a 3-unit. So they have to go through a process called where they apply for zoning relief to a group called the Board of Zoning Adjustment. And the one of the things they do is the zoning committee kind of reviews that application. We don't vote on it. We don't like go thumbs up, thumbs down. We basically just try to take their application and interpret it and review it, and then in layman's terms, communicate that to the ANC. And sometimes we'll be more proactive. If we, for instance, see that someone's asking for zoning relief, we might knock on the doors of the nearby neighbors and letting them know, are you aware that this project is coming down the pike? And just to let them know that they need to be getting involved. And everyone here is a neighbor. There's architects sitting on the committee. So we've got people who are also informed on, actual construction technologies. And you've other people who are on the committee just because we've been through BZA cases ourselves when a project was proposed next door. So we've just kind of got, some real world lessons learned. So that's kind of what this committee does in a nutshell. I hope I got that quickly. Does that, Cara, do you have any questions?
Hi, sorry, I was
No
trying to
worries.
figure out how to unmute myself.
Yeah.
No, that sounds really interesting. Funny enough, my mother-in-law was the director of planning for Queen Anne's County in Maryland. So I'm sure she'd get a kick that my first public
Yeah.
meeting I attended was for zoning and development. But thank you so much for the thorough explanation. I think it's something that's interesting, not necessarily something I had thought of involving myself in, but learning about what's going on in the neighborhood and having the platform and opportunity to directly say and comment on what I think should be allowed, or maybe there should be an adjustment where we can go a different route. Is certainly, whether it's taken or not, it's at least a way for me to kind of voice directly my opinions with fellow neighbors.
No, I mean, you could absolutely benefit the process when neighbors get involved. We were just chatting earlier about a project that is proposed for 1301 West Virginia. And, just by engaging with the developer, they had proposed one thing, and we helped facilitate conversations, and we try to nudge them into something that we think is a win-win. Like, the community does need more development. If we restrict the number of units built, then there's some basic supply and demand, and housing prices will go up. So we do want some increased development, but that development that does occur needs to be respectful of the existing neighbors. So, we try to always kind of find the win-win is kind of the goal. And speaking of which, with the zoning committee, we do need more members to join. And I think the goal, and this can be revised, each ANC can make new bylaws, new rules. Last term, the goal was to have 2 members per single member district. So with 7 single member districts in the ANC, you would expect that there was 14 committee members. Actually, the co-chair did not count towards that quota. So we could have had 15 committee members, plus all of the ANC commissioners themselves are ex officio members of the committee. So at any given monthly meeting, we might expect the commissioner to attend the zoning committee meeting. That usually what will happen if there's a project proposed for specific single member district. But we typically, I'd say the ones you see who are attending the meeting tonight are the ones who have actually, instead of having 15 committee members, it's probably just been about a core group of 5 of us. So we definitely need more volunteers, people who are willing to own their little area and help us do outreach and knock on doors and help us, educate neighbors on projects.
Hey, Kevin, Siddell's trying to get in.
Oh, look at that. I will promote her to a panelist.
Hello.
Hi, Commissioner Moore.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Commissioner Moore was just introducing the committee. We have some neighbors attending. I was just kind of giving the quick summary. We also have a neighbor, Elizabeth. Elizabeth, are you here to talk about a specific project or just here to listen?
Hi, I'm just here to listen, and I'm in 5D02,
Great.
and we've had some serious zoning issues, or not zoning, excuse me, construction violations and some really big issues, and our neighbors have really bonded over that. But I think our family is interested in joining to support 5D2 if there's an opening at all.
I think there's openings in there. I was actually thinking the other day, Commissioner Moore, I think most of our terms expired. I think when you voted all of the current committee, and I think they may have all expired at the end of the last term. So I definitely think all of the newly elected commissioners need to, and I think they should have the freedom to put together their own teams. So, but I know you guys were was it just early this month was your first, last week was your first new meeting for this new term.
Yeah. I think we scheduled a little bit of overlap so that there would be a handoff period and we wouldn't have to vote in January on new commission members. But think one of the things we'll probably discuss as commissioners at our committee of the whole is what to do about zoning seats and various other committee seats that had been left open for committees that haven't even met yet.
Yep.
And so I know that we'll definitely have that discussion and probably vote February and March.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah.
We had, when we first started, we had a long list of other projects we were going to work on. But as there was only really ever about 5 of the 14, 15 of us ever attended, just that we would, a particular project would come up that required a lot of attention. We just didn't have the time to delegate. So having,
and I think we're definitely looking to help you all with that. I think there have been some lessons learned about committees and committee participation. And I think we're definitely looking to, put you guys in a better position. Because there's just so much coming out of the zoning. I think one thing that would be helpful for me is if, and I know we talked about this, if you just give a list that says, look, here's who's been regularly attending these, here's who's had a bit of sparse attendance, and here's who we haven't seen. I think that would definitely help us for our committee of the whole making decisions moving forward about, who should stay, who should go, and we could start to address that.
Gotcha. No, we definitely, I remember one of the projects when we first started committees, we wanted to go around and create like a database of all of like the abandoned properties, and then just start leading on, properties that have sat vacant with like metal propping them up for 5 years. And we just never had the bandwidth to start leading on identify where are these property owners, like, why is this sitting here? And so, and that's just one particular project. We wanted to create a template for when a project got proposed that we would proactively go out there and paper on neighbors' doors, just so they would be aware. And, there's this, but, when a BZA case comes up, it takes up a lot of time.
I agree. And I think another thing to consider, and you might have just mentioned this as I was coming on, but would be to add additional members to a committee like the zoning committee. I mean, maybe it should just be a larger committee, and B, let's see if we can get some people who are going to be a bit more proactive.
And and this is up to the commissioners. Maybe you want to revise or take a look at the bylaws we wrote, because maybe that was our first time we tried the committee. So maybe we need to be less. I know that in the last time there was times where we already hit the number like 2 per single member district, but then we had like I remember there was like 5D6. There was like 4 or 5 people who really wanted to attend, and we might have actually had all of them regularly attend, and they would not have hesitated to support cases in Carver Langston or Ivy City. And then so we almost, we might want to relax that. Like, I think it would be nice to aim for some total number and then make the best effort to recruit people, from throughout the neighborhood, but maybe not give ourselves rigid rules, back ourselves in a corner.
I think there's definitely something to consider there, and especially since we're hoping that these committees will work collaboratively and in a way that supports not just our entire commission area, but the goals of the city at large. So, you live, you learn, and I think those are good observations.
So I'm going to do a screen share right now, so folks can see my screen. Oh, we have someone in the chat. Oh, good. We've got some people chatting here. If you have any questions, just please put them in the chat. And if someone else tries to join and hasn't, I have not promoted them to a panelist so they can turn on their screen, please let me know. But I'm going to share my screen so we can chat about a project. It's BZA case 20359. That has been proposed for the corner of West Virginia and Neal Street. And what you're seeing on the right hand, are you guys seeing my screen here?
Yep.
You are? Okay.
Yep.
So on the right hand side, this was how the project was initially proposed. And it was like a 5-unit building that, well, this is how it looked. And I think it's fair to say that a lot of neighbors were surprised. I think there was some issues with the U.S. Postal Service. With all BZA cases, the actual neighbor notification occurs from DCRA itself. Sends, not DCRA, the Office of Zoning are the ones who actually send out the neighbor notification letters. Those may have been sent out on time, but a lot of neighbors received them very, very late. A lot of people were kind of felt surprised and blindsided. Even the adjoining homeowner that lives immediately to the left here, they only learned of this when we actually knocked on their door on November 28th. And initially this this BZA case, their hearing is actually scheduled for next Wednesday. I think that's January 28th. So they've, in the past, I'd say since November, the developer did come and present at the November zoning committee meeting. And it was actually after that, and during that meeting, we looked at their project, we gave them some feedback, just advised things that we thought would help them best win support at the ANC and, not run into issues with neighbors. And at that meeting, we did recommend that they knock on the door of the neighbors next door just to be sure all the neighbors knew, especially the immediate next door neighbor. I don't think they did that, at least not before we got to them. About a week later, we knocked on the door and just gave them a heads up. And we've had some conversations. Since then, they've actually changed the design a fair amount. The building is now, it was a 5-unit, it's now become a 3-unit building. You can see they've turned the third story into this kind of dormer style. And they have the rooftop deck previously had one large, tall, integrated 3.5-foot parapet wall. They're actually minimizing the size of that that's to mitigate the shade on the adjoining neighbor's yard. There still will be shade. You're still going up three stories. The backyard also used to go back 12 feet, and they've taken it back to a 10-foot addition. And if anyone wants, if you go to the BZA, I'm trying to find it here. If you do a zoning search, if you search for BZA, BZA case search and search for 20359, you'll find the case record. And then if you in there go down to the case documents, click view full log, and you'll get this list here. So you can look at the full detail plans. That's where these case exhibits here you're seeing. And that's just the final rendering of the project, but they got detailed plans in here. The units that would be provided from this would be 2 3-bedroom units and 1 2-bedroom unit. The Office of Planning and DC's Department of Transportation did submit reports last week on this project. Office of Planning, and these are 2 agencies. When this case goes before the Board of Zoning Adjustment next Wednesday, they take into their own opinion, but also they look at 3 reports. One is a report from the Office of Planning. Second is the DDOT report. And the third is the ANC's report. So OP is recommending they approve this project, which is, that goes a long way in the BZA's thought process. DDOT is not objecting to the process, but DDOT has made it very clear that they want this, and I'm going to zoom to the very back here. Previously, if you guys go on Google Street View, you'll see that there used to be a curb cut and a parking space in here. DDOT wants this wall restored here. DDOT wants them to no longer have that curb cut. Let's see if I can bring up here. You can kind of see it here. Because the new building is coming out here, and it comes, I think, maybe 5-10 feet close. DDOT does not want this to remain. You can see here, this is technically public space that's been tarmacked over because it's a curb cut. Well, DDOT is recommending that all of this get restored to public space. The good news is actually now, so this is one more, maybe a full parking space and I know neighbors are always concerned about parking, but it does now mean that this project will be 3 units. There will be 2 parking spaces in the back. And if the developer follows DDOT's recommendation, we will see 1 additional parking spot on the street because this curb cut will disappear. And so that's a quick summary of the project. I spoke with, there's a neighbor, I'm actually going to go back to this view here. The family who lives here, they own a relatively new solar system, and they have concerns about that impact in their system. So let me see if I can, there we go. It's this home right here. I spoke with her today. My experience is, even if this building goes back 10 feet, I don't think there's going to be a significant, and when I say significant, I mean the definition by the zoning regulations, which defines significant as 5% per annum. So I don't think, my experience tells me they will not have a significant impact, but they do want to see analysis done. So I recommended she reach out to the developer, and I think it's the only people who have that software is the solar installer companies themselves. And I think they charge anywhere from like $300 to $500 to perform that analysis. So I think the applicant here for this project should probably do that analysis to put this neighbor's mind at ease that their system won't be impacted. And if it is impacted, let's say more than 5%, then the question comes into they should, if they want to move forward, they should, that is a financial impact because it is decreasing electricity. This family also owns the solar renewable energy credits, or SRECs, that get generated from their system. So if there's going to be a decrease in SRECs due to this project, they can probably figure out what the math is on that over 20 years and basically ask this developer to reimburse them for that. So we just want to be sure that they get respected. The family who lives next door, that's the Albury family. The young lady who lives here is 98 years of age. She's lived in this home over 70 years. She's probably the longest living resident continuously in Trinidad. That family is right now very much in opposition. They are very much in opposition to the project. I'm not quite sure what more they want of the design. And I really shouldn't say more. I mean, I think they've already gotten the design changed a lot. My concern is if they feel they're never going to win the neighbor's support, and if they feel that they could lose the BZA case, my fear is they just withdraw the case and that this does not get built. The developer could build something whose design is not as nice, and it can almost be this size. They would have to take this back a couple feet, so there's only a 10-foot addition, and they would only be able to put 2 units inside here, but they could put 2 massive units. Otherwise, a lot of what you see here on the right side is matter of right development. So what I don't want is the family, the neighbors pushing so much that we have a case where the case is withdrawn and we're all much more sad about what comes out instead. So I think I've talked for too long. Let me step back and see what my colleagues in the committee or neighbors want to chat about.
Hey, Kevin, this is Andrew.
Hey, Andrew.
When we saw this originally, they had the 3 mechanical units at grade in the rear, and it appears that they've relocated 2 of them to the roof, yes, which I think is good. Do they have another view that shows that rear with that remaining unit? I'm just curious. Sure. if they're doing any kind of screening to that.
I will do. And by the way, you reminded me as well. Initially, they were building a full height penthouse, a walk up with stairs. Instead, actually now, to mitigate the appearance of height, they're also doing these walk up skylights. So these are nowhere near as tall. And again, the issue is if you were down the sidewalk, you would have probably seen this penthouse structure stick up. They've actually, they're going to more expense by putting in these walk up skylights. It's another benefit, another change that we've managed to, convince the developer to do. So let me find Andrew site plan. Oh, looks like they put it in the, and that was one of our requests, is there it is. You can see they've moved it right into the middle, away from the property line to mitigate noise.
Okay. I think it would still be nice if it was screened in some way, and that could even be landscaping, but so that if you're walking on the sidewalk, you wouldn't see it, but I think it's an improvement.
Yeah, no, I think it's fair to say that almost every change we have asked them to do since we met with them at the November committee meeting, they've actually implemented. And I would say it's rare when they move that. I mean, clearly they're under schedule pressure themselves. I think they obviously would prefer to go next Wednesday, get this case approved so that they can then start the DCRA building permit process. That itself is a lengthy process. So, I think there was some missteps on their part this summer, because we know, looking in the case exhibits, that the plat is dated in May. They were clearly planning on this. This was on the right side, this was their plan this past summer and fall. There was just not any neighborhood. There was no neighbor outreach until we pushed the issue at the very end of November. And I think that has not promoted any trust between them and the neighbors. So despite the fact that actually we now look at this and they've done so many beneficial changes, then a lot of the neighbors are just very uncomfortable. And unfortunately, so personally, I think the project is now a very acceptable project from, to me, it's falling into the win-win category. But I think they did some damage to themselves with the neighbors in not telling people sooner enough, and then telling neighbors within weeks, you need to support this project immediately. And these are neighbors who've lived here for 70 years and been given no notice. That's just straight up disrespectful. So that's where they stand right now. But, I think we're at the point where we have to ask them, what else would we have them change about the design? And looks like DDOT has given him a great recommendation. In fact, we should have thought of that. But I think, closing this off and restoring this, and that gives back the community additional parking space as well. So they can almost argue that 3 units, 3 parking spaces.
Well, and in the original that we saw, they didn't have the driveway. They weren't maintaining the driveway.
They weren't. So they actually added this feature back on the revision.
Yeah.
And so the issue also is if they keep that driveway there, we were talking about this in our meeting before, it's really too short to have a car. And so the car is going to end up poking into the sidewalk. And so it's going to invite people to park there, but it's going to be like an ongoing issue in public space.
Yeah, you're right, Andrew. And I just checked Exhibit 5 here on the right side of my page. This is the original. You can see where they're showing the curb cut. And but here they're literally planning on having this just be a very wide walk up. Ultimately they can do whatever they want to here. DDOT did refer to this as public space. There is no building restriction lines on this block right here. Technically, but I think, is this dash line, Marshall, was this dash line, was this the
That's the property line. Yeah.
Oh, which means in which case then DDOT can absolutely dictate exactly what happens beyond here. And DDOT can just tell them you can't, they allow us to have our front yards. Most of my front yard is in public space, and that's how these row house neighborhoods are established. But they can absolutely dictate this, what they're asking to do here. So, Commissioner Hoffman, what do you think is the plan between now and next Wednesday? I know there is a committee, a hearing next Wednesday. You have submitted a report asking for a postponement. If the BZA doesn't agree with that and a case goes forward, I think the risk right now is that the ANC has no commentary whatsoever in the case record.
Yes. I mean, I suppose we could get a report together, but we wouldn't be able to vote on it. We also voted on the BZA relief for the 3 units.
Yeah.
So
I mean, and that actually right now is the only, when this case started, they were asking
several.
for like, it was like 3 or 4 zoning reliefs. They've
Yeah.
actually addressed most of them and removed them. And the only remaining request is for 3 units versus 2.
Yeah. So, I mean, I do back up my opinion that it should be delayed. Of course, the BZA can do whatever they see fit. But I think in the essence of like not having a commentary, I mean, I've been very involved, at least as far as my own SMD, in supporting the neighbors and community feedback that has gone in to really shape this property. So to say we didn't have any impact, you know, maybe not so true, but what you're saying is definitely right with not having the report done.
Oh yeah,
Just
no,
want to add this.
we've had significant impact
Can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes. No.
Okay. I was just going to add this in terms of not having a final report. I think that definitely is a challenge. One of the ways we've overcome that in the past is by having a commissioner attend and just explain the thinking. In lieu of a vote, they have often accepted, testimony from the commission to say, we don't support it as it stands, because X, Y, Z.
Mm-hmm.
Even if we haven't taken the official vote yet.
Oh, good point. And actually, we could prepare even a full PowerPoint presentation so that to accompany a commissioner's testimony. That way, that would have to be submitted a day or two so the ANC could have a presentation ready to go. It would not be a voted upon ANC report, but the ANC could absolutely have their voice heard on the project.
Yeah. And I think that would be an appropriate remedy in a situation like this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you know when that hearing is specifically on that day?
It is. The hearing is actually an all-day event, and I think it starts at like 10 a.m. However, if you plan to attend, and if I believe Mr. Moy of the BZA, if you reach out to them and say, I'm an ANC commissioner and I wish to attend this, what in the past they have done is they've bumped up your case in the agenda so you can get over and done with early in the day. Yeah. If you don't do that, you could be literally tied to your laptop for 5 hours, 6 hours. But if you plan to attend and you let them know, they will push up and you'll get in and out a lot sooner.
Who would I email?
His name is Clifford Moy. Okay. I believe it might still be Clifford Moy. If we go to the Office of Zoning's BZA website, I think he is the person who does the scheduling and sets the agenda. He's I forget his exact title.
Sure.
Commissioner Shropshire, I know you attended a hearing recently. Is Clifford Moy, is he still the person to contact?
Is Keisha here?
She was here earlier, but then she had dialed in over the phone, but then she might have. Yeah, I have my memory is I think Mr. Moy is still there. So, and if you get an email bounce back, Commissioner Hoffman, I would just, just let me know. We'll figure out who the right person is. But yeah, we should definitely. They absolutely understand that the ANC commissioners are, already you have so many demands on your time, and they absolutely will try to minimize that impact.
Great, appreciate that.
I'm going to stop unless anyone, does anyone have any questions? Should I stop the share? Were there any other things that you wanted to look at?
No.
Okay. Oh, looks like we had another neighbor attend the meeting. Mr. Skip Keats. Hi, Mr. Keats.
Hi, this is my first one. I moved in last month.
Oh, cheers. Welcome, neighbor.
I found out about this through next door.
Okay.
So just sort of listening.
Okay. Did you find out which single member? I saw your post. Did you figure out which single member district you're in?
Yes, 5D05.
Oh, lucky man.
So you're the gentleman with whom I was communicating. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And your commissioner is actually attending this meeting right now, in fact.
Happy to have you.
Thank you. Architecture is something that I've always found fascinating since a kid. So.
Yeah, well, you're in the right place.
I used to build little Lego houses and things, literally with you can open and whatnot.
Oh, wow.
It's pretty much the same thing.
Yeah,
What we're
definitely.
doing here. Bigger Legos, more people upset about us taking Legos.
Yeah.
So I don't have anything else on the agenda. I just want to turn the floor over to any of the commissioners if they had anything to bring up, or one of the other committee members, or one of the neighbors.
No, I think the only thing I'll just reiterate is that we're definitely looking to have additional committee members. And I think we're definitely going to have a discussion about how best to support the workload. Because, there's progress here, right? Because originally we had no zoning and development committee, and it was just an absolute free-for-all. With each commissioner doing their own due diligence on absolutely every single case, and some very much overwhelmed. But now we don't want the zoning and development committee to be overwhelmed. And we really do want to think about, ways to better support the work you're doing, especially around outreach.
Yeah, and I think now, as you're saying this, I'm realizing, I think what would be good if I was to write up, I mean, the other committee members who regularly attend, like Marshall and Andrew, and Stacy, like maybe a lessons learned, like what things worked well for us, and what things should the next committee members, work well. And by the way, Commissioner Moore, I understand. I think a lot of the people who have attended historically would like to continue attending, but I'll leave that up to each person to reach out to you. But, there's definitely going to be a lot more newer committee members. But I think, there are things that definitely worked really well. And then things that we probably need to change and update the committee bylaws. And, so I'll try to write something up, share it with the team, and then I'll send it to you, and you guys can decide how best we can continue to support.
Yeah, definitely. And I think also now we're at a place where, we're a lot more stable. And so we can offer additional supports, like having administrative assistance for our resident committees as well. Because we just for years did not have any administrative assistance. And now we as a commission do have admin staff. And so we can make that available to help with reports. Because really the key work of the ANC is outreach to the community and having good ideas about things that help in the community, not filling out forms. And so there can be a lot of that anytime you're dealing with the government. So any support we can provide in that area, I think, is something that we're also very happy to look at.
Okay. I just thought I would throw out one thing. A lot of people don't know what it is, but I'm an accessibility consultant, mostly for things that are web related. But I had a really bad accident 20 years ago, which made me really conscious about what things don't work well. So I'm a very big person on trying to make things, I guess you might say, inclusive design. So curb cuts and things like that, which help more than just a person in a wheelchair, but also someone who's moving luggage or a baby carriage and things like that.
Mhm.
And I thought what you were discussing with the building earlier was interesting because of this, of the setbacks and everything. What I didn't see on the plan, it just might be that because it's focused on the building as opposed to what's around it. I didn't see any curb cuts along the indicated on the plan at all for egress for someone with disabilities of any form.
Most likely because those curb cuts are all the responsibility of DDOT.
Gotcha. So
and
I just
so-
moved in. I moved from Arlington, so
Yeah.
things are different. So this is the type of thing why I joined the meeting, so I could learn.
Yeah. So like,
Yeah.
Oh, there is one. Okay.
so there is curb cuts here, and actually they've been going through the neighborhood in the past few weeks, and they've been actually, even where the old corners don't have these accessibility features, they're actually been changing them. They've been like, there's been a lot of construction in the neighborhood the past few months, and they've been adding these where they don't exist.
That's good.
Mhm. Yeah.
I don't even think the developer has any right to say anything about these. These will just occur. And I think DDOT, for this particular case, their opinion was, well, if you're doing a thing out to here, you can't fit a car here. So if you can't fit a car here, why are you not? They actually want to see this curb cut removed, so it provides additional parking, and it has a lot to do with what when DDOT talks about the word parking, they're really referring to greenery and green parking, and so they're going to want to see this restored with proper curb and greenery here.
Correct. Remove the driveway cut.
Yes, and so I think in whatever presentation the ANC does next week, we should probably like really emphasize, double down on that BZA on that DDOT recommendation. So unless anyone has any more comments, I am going to I will close out this meeting until next month.
I do have one question. You
Okay.
were talking about trying to expand. I guess it would be this committee. How
Yes,
does one go about doing that or applying or anything? Because I would be.
great.
I'm not an architect or anything, but I'm involved with design and things like that. So
Sure. So A, you're in the right place. And B, there is a form that I can send you the link to. But the number one thing you can do is just shoot me an email. I mean, let's just make it easy.
yes, we communicated once before. You're Miss Seidel, right?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Yes, I'm still trying to get an appointment to get my car re-registered.
Yeah, and you're not the only one. The appointments now, I think, are into June. So
It's very concerned.
yeah, but they're not going to come around and get you. So
Okay.
I think they're giving everyone a reprieve because they realize that the situation is just completely unworkable.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that. Oh,
So I think definitely, I think Kevin just put my email in the chat box, but you already have it. So
I think
reach
I already
out.
have it.
Yeah,
Yes, okay.
Yeah, just reach out and let me know. I think one of the things we've been discussing is expanding the committee, right before you jumped on the call. And that's definitely something that we're looking into. And the term is almost up for a lot of the current committee members. So we do have to start looking at, the handoff.
Yeah, I would be interested because it would let me know a bit more about DC politics and things like that.
Yeah,
I'm not registered to vote yet because, of course, that's done when the car registration is done. But there's no election committee, to my knowledge. Is there?
No, but we do spring them on you sometimes. So
Okay. Can you even register to vote without having the car registration done?
Yeah, you sure can.
Oh,
Absolutely.
I can. Okay.
Absolutely. You do not have to be a car owner, driver, any of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I should say one thing I love about the ANCs is that they're actually not political. There's no, you just moved to the cities, so, and you may not know this, but like no one running for ANC tells you what party they're on. It's just about,
that's interesting.
it is nonpartisan. They're volunteers serving their community. So politics don't come into it. The zoning committee is more about about the mechanics of government, about like how does DC government provide zoning relief to projects. So it's almost just, this is such a political city. The ANCs are great because there's no politics.
Nonpartisan.
Yeah,
nonpartisan.
it's technocratic. Yeah, very much
Okay.
so. Yeah, but definitely reach out. Zoning in DC is definitely very different than how zoning is handled in Arlington. And it really is a fantastic way to learn about the city. And also, I do 508 compliance. And so, that's definitely something that I've had a lot of interest in. And I think something you might also look into is whether you'd be interested in joining the transit committee as well, because there's a nice overlap there.
Yes, there
in
would
terms
be.
of yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's one thing that just boggles my mind is why there isn't for example, a metro station where that curve is for the tracks that go across Benning Road. And
Oh, Oklahoma Avenue Metro Station. That's an interesting backstory.
oh, so there was one planned.
There was.
There should be.
Yes, I agree.
Especially as you could then pull that trolley straight into it, the streetcar.
Yes.
And then extend it on to what would be the one on Minnesota Avenue. I think it's Minnesota Avenue. I'm not certain the name of the stop.
Yeah, Minnesota Avenue is the next.
Yeah, and you could then link the lines together.
Skip, it sounds like you should join the transportation committee and make that your mission.
Yeah.
But
I have one question before everyone departs, if I can ask it.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. I know this isn't transportation, but I don't know how this kind of works together with zoning. But we heard there was talk of extending some type of walkway or entrance into the Arboretum, into the original entrance. Does anybody from zoning have to weigh in on that when they start that project?
So, Kevin, do you want me to take that one?
Yes, and what I'm going to share my screen while you're talking. I'll share my screen and I'll try to bring up that entrance.
Yeah, so the M Street entrance, no. The ANC has already voted years ago to support reopening that entrance. The challenge we were really facing is the previous administration, because the Arboretum is actually not National Parks property, it's USDA property, because that's a research project. And they just simply didn't have the money. They had a really kind of incompetent person who was just, not qualified in the basic sense to run the USDA. So that just sucked up all of the energy, a lot of the life in the room, the funding for various projects, and the money just wasn't there to finish off that pavement between M Street and the interior roads for the National Arboretum. And then the community had made other requests, like making sure that there's security, that it's a pedestrian and cyclist only entrance, and that there's additional lighting and a fully functional gate at that entrance. And so those things all take up money that would have to come from the federal government that just was not made available at any point during the Trump administration. And so, we've already reached out to Congresswoman Norton, her office, to just kind of let her know that this is definitely something that we're still interested in. She's in full agreement, and it's just a matter of us continuing to push that and making sure that the funding is there. In addition to the fact that there are some planning elements that they're working on internal to the National Arboretum that would also impact the plan. So it's in the works, but it's just one of those things where, the federal government moves at the pace of the federal government.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that that description. And my last question was, does this committee have anything to do with buildings that are condemned, or is this just approving new projects?
We actually, when we started up last year, one of our side projects we wanted to do was we actually did want to create a database of projects that are like, there's a house on Moore Street where the front has been held up by steel beams for as long as I've lived here.
Yeah.
And we just wanted to kind of figure out and basically have a team of people who dig into these abandoned houses to find out why they are. There usually is, sometimes they're just tied up in probate, but sometimes they're not being taxed appropriately. And if a building is truly abandoned, we can push to be ensured that it is being taxed at the very high rate. If a building is not, if that tax is not being paid, then the city can go ahead and sell it at a tax sale. And that way, at least it gets developed by somebody instead of just being sitting there. So I think there is a place for the zoning committee to get involved to stop, what I call land banking. There are people out there who have no intention of developing it. They're just sitting on a site and it's just vacant and not doing anything, and they're contributing blight to the neighborhood. And that house, I've heard the people who live who own that house on Moore Street that's being held up, they live overseas, and yet somehow they're paying their taxes because they probably figure, well, as long as I keep paying the taxes, the longer I hold on to it, I can sell it for a higher profit in the future.
Right.
But at some point, they should be forced to sell, and so that whether it's a developer or someone else who buys it, it's not an eyesore.
Well, thank you very much. The reason I ask is because there's a property in between Montello and West Virginia, and not all of it. And it's at the entrance to the alleyway, and it's been harboring a lot of negative activity, and also a site of illegal dumping. And so we're going to continue to bring it up with our councilman, but it's a little disturbing because when it's better weather, there's more people that kind of hide behind some of the illegal dumping matters and take advantage of women, and there's a couple bad things going on. So we've been really upset with the way this property has been managed and trying to figure out how we can do something about it as neighbors.
Can you put the address? Would you mind? Or you can send it to your commissioner up there. Is that Steve? Is that 507 or 2? Oh, that's 2.
It's 2.
What's the new commissioner's name?
Commissioner Guzman.
Guzman. So
yeah, so we need to meet him still.
Yeah, I mean, his email address is
5DO2
at anc.dc.gov.
Got it. Thank you.
Definitely make sure he's aware of it, and and there are Commissioner Moore can definitely help give him advice on how to put pressure and to get cleaned up.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Well, if you end up adding that subcommittee on the condemned properties and whatnot, I'm sure there are a couple of neighbors that would be very interested in helping with you guys.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, with any final questions, comments?
None from me, other than thank you, Kevin.
All right. Look at that. 8:30. We're finishing on time. All right, everybody.
Thank you all.
Thanks so much.
you,
I hope
everyone.
this is educational. Talk to you all soon. Cheers.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.